You know, things change a lot. Whether they be relationships, video games, the internet, and so on, the world around us is constantly changing, and in terms of consumable media, people are constantly finding ways to renovate stuff and make things feel new and better. Video games in the past 40 years have gone from little pixels moving to block-like humanoid figures moving, and from there in 8 years' time becoming incredibly realistic with the way they look. Even the creation of movies has changed a lot, whether that be for better or for worse, I'll let you decide, but you don't even need to leave a studio to make a movie now. As long as you have a giant green screen and actors, you don't need real life locations, you can create them. And one of those things that have changed throughout the years is anime. Now look, I'm not going to pretend like I've watched anime all my life. In fact, before I gave it another shot at 15 with Cowboy Bebop, I didn't have a lot of experience with the medium. I grew up watching the Pokemon anime starting when I was around 8. I watched a ton of Teen Titans and Beyblade Metal Fusion, which, man, the memories with those two are just so lovely for me to look back on. And Digimon Fusion will forever hold a special place in my heart.
Which apparently you guys didn't like, and you know what, that's okay. We all have our ways of being disappointment.
Wow, I'm sorry about that. That got a little judgmental. But you're still an unsophisticated swine! However, when I watched my first shonen series, Jujutsu Kaisen, I found that anime changed a lot since I was younger. I get that the studio that made JJK didn't animate the stuff I grew up with, but even then, the animation, the colors, the vibrance and all of it just felt strange to me. And for those who are not like me and kept up in the industry, this wasn't anything new, Demon Slayer popularizing this colorful shonen action over a year before Jujutsu Kaisen's anime debuted. However, to me, it felt like in an instant, anime changed a lot since I watched it when I was a kid. It felt like I almost skipped a whole period of when anime began to change. It's almost like I skipped a sort of transition period. So let's rewind the clock back 20 years to the year 2000. Note to everyone watching this, I wasn't alive. Anime at this time was changing rapidly, both technologically and structurally, and slowly shifting from that 90s noir and adult kind of feeling many anime had, with many series such as Dragon Ball Z, Naruto, and later Bleach getting animated and reaching a far bigger audience, partly because of anime finally finding its footing in the West. If you talk to a lot of people that grew up in the early 2000s, there's a good chance they'll mention how they watched Naruto as a kid, how Ichigo was their role model, and how Sonic X was awesome. I was the Sonic X kid, by the way. And with this weird transition period, you find that a lot of animes have this bizarre feeling to them, like a weird surreal mix of the 90s and the development that built the foundation of what anime is today. So all that to say, Shinichiro Watanabe is a literal legend in the anime industry. I know, it took a while to say that, right? Cowboy Bebop is what I think helped create the building blocks to early 2000s anime. It has this playful and upbeat charm, but it's also very mature with its themes and elements to the story. And if anything, Bebop has style. It's a futuristic sci-fi show where all kinds of jazz music flavors the soundtrack, and the noir type lighting and setting provides the show with this beautiful and aesthetic vibe to it. And what helps give it this impact is that it was made when this transition period for anime was beginning, as the show wrapped up in the year 1999. And so after the final episode of Bebop ran, Watanabe thought, how could I create something like Bebop? Something that uses music from one era and takes place in another, and replicate it, giving it a sense of familiarity and yet also make it new and fresh. And so Watanabe created a banger. It was called Samurai Champloo. Samurai Champloo is awesome. It's the show that manages to create this vibrant yet also grounded art style that can show expression along with realism. It manages to be a downright vibe at points, and by at points I mean the entire show, while also managing to be emotionally impactful. It's simple, but that's part of the fun. Similar to Cowboy Bebop, it's very episodic with its narrative structure, with some episodes progressing the overall plot or giving depth to these characters, and while that might be a gripe to some, I don't care, the show's sick. In fact, Samurai Champloo and Cowboy Bebop both share a ton of similarities between each other. I mean, in the dub, Mugen's voice actor Steve Blum also played Spike Spiegel, so there's that +1 for dub fans.
I love the kind of woman that will actually just kill me.
Like, you have my permission to shoot me. But what really surprised me was how many people haven't seen this show. Cowboy Bebop is acclaimed by many to be one of the greats. However, Samurai Champloo, while it does have its fans, is a lot less well known than Watanabe's other work. And if you ask me why I'm talking about this show today, it would be for the sole reason of doing my part to change that. I want this show to be more well known than it currently is, and I also really want to talk about why beetle battle should be a real sport. The story follows a trio of idiots in their journey to find a samurai that smells of sunflowers, which, by the way, doesn't have a smell. The group is made up of Mugen, a deranged breakdancing samurai who likes women, Jin, a noble proper samurai that is incredibly skilled and who also likes women, and Fu, a young girl that tries to keep the group together and to prevent Mugen and Jin from killing each other. And the first thing I want to touch on is how this trio comes together, because quite frankly, at first they don't like each other at all. Mugen and Jin are both put on death row because they pissed off the prefect of the town by beating up his kid, killing his bodyguards, and then trying to kill each other, but are saved by Fu. And after a random coin toss, they are forced to accompany this girl as bodyguards to find this dude that they've never heard of before. And the first half of the series really shows the level of tension surrounding the group. Both Mugen and Jin abandon Fu constantly and indulge in their own hobbies and never really show any sign of trust or care in anyone other than themselves, and overall seem really selfish. And Fu doesn't trust them and constantly reminds herself that, you know, she chose the worst people to protect her on her journey. None of these characters are really likable at first. Mugen's selfish, Jin never talks, doesn't care, and Fu is overly annoying. And the thing is, that's kind of the point. If Cowboy Bebop is a show that focuses on these characters after their respective stories and pasts have concluded, Samurai Champloo is the journey that creates those stories. And in turn, we get to watch these characters slowly grow and change in subtle ways at first. Jin begins to open up more and communicate with the group better. Mugen doesn't change his habits, but he starts to become more reliable and help the others in mostly violent ways. And Fu actually starts to appreciate these two idiots and not scream at them to find the sunflower samurai every 2.5 minutes. Real character development right there. And it all just makes each character feel more alive, like they have a reason for why they are who they are. Like I've already said, the show is more episodic than most. In the way that they come across a new town or area, they bump into someone who is in trouble, and Mugen and Jin save the day at the end. However, what I love is that each of these characters that show up for only one episode each have backgrounds, dreams, aspirations, a story that makes them who they are. And I know this isn't exactly unique to Samurai Champloo, but the way they use these side characters for comedy, added tension, or even emotional renaissance manages to leave an impact on you. And what helps with that is the memorable way these situations play out, particularly in its fights. Part of what I love about the fights in Samurai Champloo is that it not only conveys whatever emotion they are going for in a meaningful or playful manner, but it expresses the personality of each individual through their fighting style. Take Jin, he's a dude whose code and fighting style is in line with other honorable samurai, and that code and sophisticated, controlled personality is represented through how he fights. Every single sword swing is meaningful and tactical, him and his opponents dancing through each other's swings in a manner that conveys the level of skill and talent on display, often emphasized through how often his fights tend to be one-on-ones. However, Mugen is a wild animal, his movements and fighting style relying more on the unpredictable nature of combat than anything else. I mean, the dude even breakdances while fighting. What's not to love about this man? However, even outside of the fights in the show, the animation is constantly smooth and expressive. These characters' personalities are worn on their sleeve, and the way they and other characters move give this world a lot of charm and make it feel alive. And what makes each scene better is the hip-hop soundtrack. Bebop's jazz felt appropriate for the kind of show that it was. It was slick, it was smooth, it was noir-like, and therefore the music always fit each scene incredibly well. Here in Samurai Champloo, the hip-hop soundtrack matches the style and energy that pulses through each moment, and in theory you wouldn't think it would fit that well since the genre was created hundreds of years after the Edo period. However, somehow it's one of the most memorable aspects of the show. Nujabes and many other artists managed to encapsulate this hip-hop genre into a Japanese setting, and the results are incredible. Overall, looking back at this script, I realized that this is kind of a mess of a video compared to my other stuff, which, to be fair, is also still a mess. However, the reason why I'm not going to change the way this video flows is because I think in a way that's how Samurai Champloo's structure itself works. It's always a mess of ideas that upon first glance got thrown into the pot, however, somehow it comes together to form this stylish and memorable show. If you, the person who hasn't watched Samurai Champloo, have watched this whole thing and been interested enough to come this far, I really do recommend you give it a shot. It's a short anime that was made while anime itself was changing and slowly starting to build the foundation for what would become popular today. And I respect those kind of shows that helped inspire the kids that are today creating their own stories and setting the new standard for anime in general. And I can't help but believe that for many, Samurai Champloo helped form that foundation and inspire tons of creators to pursue something they really wanted to do. Now for the people who have to animate those stories, oh boy, they're not seeing their families anytime soon. However, I think that the inspiration Samurai Champloo gave is really cool. And even without that, I think Samurai Champloo is pretty awesome, man. Hello there, friendly strangers on the internet, thank you so much for watching. This video was only meant to be 6 or 7 minutes long, but ended up being nearly 11, so that was not intended at all. However, I do appreciate you watching all 11 minutes of it. Now I gotta pray to God that I get the Halloween video out on time. Anyways, take care of others, and I will see you next time.